Hi, good night, good morning, and good afternoon to everybody in the world today. Welcome to World Ocean Week that ADEX is planning for the last 4 days, and also the other one tomorrow. Today, what we have here is that we have the honor of having Mr. Michael Maes from Belgium, which is currently now in Cayman Island, to share with us a little bit of his presentation on extreme wildlife cinematography. Michael Maes is an award-winning filmmaker, and he talks about logical and environmental challenges on his quest for footage of Arctic animals and the impact of climate change. Let's not wait any further ado. I think I shall just hand it over to Michael. Michael, take it away.
All right. Let's see. Trying to up. All right. Am I online?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you, Nora, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I have a special thank you first to the ADEX team for having me on their virtual expo for World Oceans Week. I am Michael Maes. I am an extreme wildlife cinematographer. Why do I call it extreme? Because I shoot mostly on the Arctic, under the Arctic, so underwater, on remote places with big animals, apex predators, and I film their behavior especially and action. I do work on assignments. I do work for my own stockage footage library. I have my own productions and I get hired for productions. That's mainly the job. Filming on the Arctic, for me, that is about being prepared. It's a logistical challenge. Environmental challenges, impacts of the climate change are very severe, and you have to consider your gear. And I'll talk to you about the reality in the field. So, do you think this is easy? Well, in a way, it is. You know your cameras, you know your settings, your lens choices, and so on. That's the fairly easy part. But being there, being ready at the right moment, that's a different story. That's a difficult one. So I invite you to join me on some of my journeys to the Arctic to film amazing wildlife. Let's just wait until our little polar bear gets out of the water. By the way, we called him Junior. He's crazy as a whatever, craziest polar bear I've ever met. And there he goes. So, rule number 1, prepare at home. Do not prepare in the field, because you're out there in the field and you want to record, bang. In this case, there's a problem with a memory card. Okay, not too bad, but you don't want to miss out on opportunities. At home, before you pack even, test every component. And I literally mean every component, because the Arctic is an extremely harsh environment. It can be really warm, 10 degrees in the summer, even 30 degrees Celsius, but it can also be minus 30, minus 40 degrees Celsius, and add a blizzard wind, and then it's really hell on ice. So it's very important to have everything ready before you even pack. If you have the time, update your firmwares of everything you can update. But if you do so, test every device after you did the update. Because I did it with an iPhone even, and there was a bug and I didn't know. So I did a lot of selfie documentary style about the bad eyes and there was no audio. I didn't test it before I left. Do mount every configuration you plan to use. Now, this one was a very big project, and it took months of preparations with Ari, the producers, with the Black Arm producers, with the distributors. It was a huge team effort, and we got it to work under Arctic-ish conditions. But then you go to the Arctic, jump off slide. If you have a lot of different setups like I do, just use gaffer tape, put them on it, take a Sharpie and mark what the thing does. So I try to keep everything in the same position. So there's a muscle memory to do my focusing. I do manual focusing all the time. Your zooms, your aperture, whatever. So you know, if you forgot it, at least you can look at it and see where it is. Packing, I guess we'll come back to the Black Arm thing later. Packing is also an important thing. Try to use as much dead space as you can. You have the port extender here. It's a hard body. It's a avoid space. Well, put whatever you can into it without it getting damaged, but also be careful for the weight, because there are big weight restrictions on the Arctic per case, per luggage. Another thing is organize very well, extremely well, because in the cold, tactile your hands, it's very difficult to even grab a big piece of material. Your brain has more troubles to cope with tactile things. Your hands, they don't feel stuff. So prepare everything, mark everything. Also the marking, like here, this is extreme, left rear, left front and such, but those were 3 layers of foam and they all had the markings, and that's for TSA, because they don't know what it is. They take pieces out and then they put it back and they put it upside down, reverse, whatever, and stuff breaks before you arrive at your destination. This is a simple thing I always do is I use American plug style devices. So when I go to Europe, I just take an American plug and put a European plug on it. But beware when you do it, don't use ones with surge protections, because of the different voltage, you will blow up the fuse box of wherever you are. Organize. If you're there for a few days, okay. If you're there for a longer time, organize. Bring spare parts. Think about what can break down, and probably it will break down. So bring spare parts. Okay. You're traveling alone. I often travel alone. Make sure you can handle your luggage, because you have to go from terminal A to terminal Z, whatever. You can't take a cart with you. So just make sure you can handle it alone, because it's a lot of material, it's expensive material, and you don't want to leave it there unguarded while you bring it somewhere else. This is the maximum I can handle, and I also have a roller carry-on from about 60 pounds and a backpack around 40 pounds at the same time. But I managed to do that. If you go on longer expeditions, that means you have more luggage. And more luggage. Always think about it. How do you get it from A to B? And then you think you got it all planned, you weighed it all right, and well, everything's at the limit, but you come back, your tri-suit is still wet, there's more water in there, they leave the luggage outside, it's raining, stuff gets heavier, bang, you're on overweight. So if you're allowed 22 kilos, just put in 21 kilos, because it will weigh more. And the weighing machines at the airport, they vary too. So beware of that. Oversized, 1 centimeter, half an inch, too much, it's oversized. I'm on media rate for certain companies, and this ticket I put in here because on my way back I had to pay by the friendly US Airways $600 excess luggage, which was completely unfair because I was within my media rate limits, which is 40 kilos. But they didn't know about it, so they charged me. There you are, you have to pay. Also, beware of lost luggage. Luggage does get lost occasionally or delayed. The thing I do is I have redundant parts and I spread them out. Or another thing I do is when I shoot both topside as underwater, I tend to pack everything topside in certain cases and everything underwater in different cases. So if the topside gets lost, at least I can film underwater or vice versa. You also noticed I have practically almost regular luggage. And that's something I do because the best way to travel is Pelican cases or a different brand. But that alarms customs. They always think you're a drug dealer or you're smuggling, importing stuff to sell. That's why I use regular luggages. So if you can get an ATA carnet, which is an international customs and a temporary import-export document, do so. It saves you a lot of problems, especially countries like Mexico, Indonesia, where customs, they will really give you hell when you arrive with a little bit of gear, too much gear. They are accepted in about 87 countries, and you don't have to pay duties, import duties, export duties, as long as you take out everything you brought into the country. The downside is every time you arrive at the airport or a new country, you have to go to customs. It starts in your own country. You have to go through your customs and have everything checked with the carnet and your actual luggage. Quite often they just go through the carnet list and they look at the luggage from far off and they say, okay, but sometimes they open it up. But it's the safest way. This is an example of a carnet document. Also, know what you bring along. Okay, this one is quite obvious because it's not legal to travel with cannabis, but Canadians are so friendly. You can drop it off right before TSA check. But sometimes something very obvious for us is not allowed to get imported in the country of your destination. So check what you can bring in. There are severe travel restrictions in the Arctic, and I don't want to discriminate, but personally, I think they're extremely severe on the Canadian Arctic because there are only like 2 airplane operators. They have tiny airplanes. Quite often they are used mostly to bring cargo to remote places in their territories. So they allow very few people and they allow very few luggage with very little weight. And I'm talking like 15 kilos for your luggage. If you take into account an empty piece of luggage weighs like 3 kilos, it doesn't leave you a lot. You could use a photo vest and stuff, all the heavy items in there, but they know the trick. You have to take off your vests, everything, and put it on the scale. So it is a real challenge in Canada. The cargo, if you send it by cargo, that's even not guaranteed. They will say like, okay, within 2 to 3 weeks, it should arrive on its destination. But if you need things for a larger expedition and you need them, they have to be there, ship them ahead at least 1 month. That's the only way to get them there. In the Norwegian Arctic, as I call it, the European Arctic, Norwegian Arctic, it's much less bad because many destinations there are serviced by 737s. So they're more lenient. But for Canada, sometimes you have to get a charter plane. Some productions will do that for you, which is very nice. And then there is no restriction on weight, only what the plane can carry. And here you can see this was actually me and my safety guards. And that was all the stuff we had to take along, which is, easy, funny. But hopefully your production company will take the cost for it. Then preparing on location once you get there. Sometimes there's a nice workshop, sometimes there's just a tent, or sometimes there's anything in between both. You should organize when you're out there on the ice. Again, the ice winds, very cold, your dexterity is gone. The advantage of using Pelican cases with the foam, the glow cell foams, is that everything is always at the same spot. And you can use techniques like what I do with batteries is charged batteries. I put them in closed Ziploc bags. It gives an extra safety for ingressing water or ingressing snow to protect them. If they're not in a Ziploc bag, then they're empty or close to empty. Another way to do it would be like put them upright, like you put them on the camera, which is here, and when they're used, you put them upside down. That is quicker because you don't have to take the battery out of the Ziploc bag. Another big advantage of such big Pelican cases is it's usable as a flotation device. With climate change, the ice is getting very, very weak and unpredictable. And it happened to me a couple of times already. You just break through the ice. I haven't had a big breakthrough. But if it's a big part that breaks, your snowmobile, your sleds, everything will go down into the sea underneath the ice. The snowmobile will give you some flotation for a little while, but not much. So when that happens, just let everything go, climb onto the back to your sled, release the big Pelican case. It should be closed anyway, and just hang on to it. And believe me, you will float. It'll save your life. And of course, you have your safety beacon, which you have to activate then. All right, duct tape, yes. WD-40, yes, absolutely. But on the Arctic, Loctite, that's your best friend. Vibrations are killing. It's everywhere. It's on a snowmobile. It's on the speedboat in the summertime. It's on icebreakers in the winter. It's when going from destinations A to Z with bush airplanes. It's on bush airplanes. They will release every bolt, every nut, everything that's boltable. So use Loctite. Usually I use the pink Loctite because it's strong enough to compensate for the vibrations, and it can be broken by hand in the cold. If you need a little bit more strength, use a blue Loctite, which you should heat. If it can never release, use the green one. And I mean it, everything. Loctite, everything. You'll be happy you did it. On-site repairs. You're out there, there's nothing around. Bring some basic tools for repairs. Here, this is one of the 2 chargers I had for my big batteries. And I unpacked it and the plug broke off. So that was like, whoa, because one battery takes 8 hours to charge. So suddenly, instead of charging 2 batteries in 8 hours, I would charge 16 hours for 2 batteries. That would be impossible. So I just stripped off everything and made a direct lead towards the board. Problem fixed, because I had a solder thingy with me. Sometimes, no matter the 3 months or so we prepared and designed this 5 or 6 axis stabilization system for an ultra long lens, sometimes it just doesn't work. It worked perfectly in the tropics, but it broke down on the ice because of the extreme cold. Materials shrink. Different materials have different shrink ratios, and I wasn't aware there was here on the ceiling was just a different material. So these springs, they leaked and they were rendered useless. If that happens, it happens. There's nothing to do about it. I spent 3 days trying to repair it, getting overly frustrated, and I was like, give me a tripod and let's get out, because you have to make a decision at some point and you change the script. In the field, where do you sleep? Sometimes it's luxury and you sleep in a huge tent with a heater and so on. Hey, sometimes there's even a toilet and a shower and a basin. Sometimes you sleep in a bunk bed with your gear and all different bunks for your crew. Personally, I prefer this because, just get up, grab the camera, put a battery in it, and you're gone. Sometimes you sleep in hunter cabins, which is also nice, and it gives you a little bit more protection to polar bears than a tent does. Rest when you can. Arctic has crazy days, going from 1.5 hour of daylight to 24/7 daylight, where you don't know, is it midnight, is it midday? So your how do you call it? Can't find the name. Your system is getting messed up. So rest whenever you can, and this can be in a bunk bed. Believe me, this is not staged. This is Ellen just dead out. This can be in snowish, stormish condition on your snowmobile. This is also not staged. This can be after an ice dive. That was me a few months ago, right before the coronavirus lockdowns. I was knackered, so there was a half an hour helicopter ride going back to the base camp. Sleep. Traveling on sea ice, it's very challenging. And it also depends on the region again. In the Canadian Arctic, it's more basic. It's more the Inuit style, which is more authentic. You travel with a kamutik, and a kamutik is this wooden sled. And they have their snowmobiles, which aren't very well maintained, to put it mildly. Sorry. The kamutiks are really very hard. They have no suspension, nothing. They put wooden grates on it, which you can see here. Put all your gear on. Every bang gets transmitted into your luggage, so you have to prepare very, very thoroughly over there to absorb some of the shocks. Then there's the high-tech way of traveling, which is very nice, and you put everything. Those are the pelican cases, which can float. You have high-tech snowmobiles, which go real fast, suspension, everything. Even the meals, the astronaut meals, they're all very organized. That's the complete opposite. It's very practical. It's very quick. You don't lose time. On the Arctic, it's also fixing stuff. You're always fixing stuff every day. The harsh cold, it breaks everything. I think if I remember correctly, there was just on an open piece of ice and my snowmobile just turned over suddenly. No reason. There wasn't a gap. There was nothing. It just bang and I was upside down. This is like skids, replace skids, put the replace the rubber sliders on the skids. You just hit a tiny little, really tiny little rock, and it breaks off. Sometimes the suspension itself breaks off. You just have to keep on fixing stuff. Then filming polar bears is not about filming polar bears. It's about scouting. You're scouting. It's a wide area. You're scouting. You're driving hundreds of kilometers to find one polar bear. Scouting. And believe me, a polar bear is very hard to see. Although they are not white, but yellow, they're very hard to see in the snow. So scouting everywhere. Even scouting and have lunch. It's huge areas you're covering to find a relatively small polar bear. Again, scouting. And you spend days without seeing a polar bear. 3 years ago, I spent 2 weeks on the Arctic. I drove 2,200 or 400 kilometers, and only on the last day we saw our first and last polar bear. Safety is very important. I am not going to show you the guns and everything. Yes, I do take safety guards with me because polar bears are the most lethal predators on the planet, and they are the only animal I'm aware of, apart from human beings, that kill also just for pleasure, for fun. Now with climate change and they have less access to food, that behavior is less seen, but they can do that, and they're extremely fast. So to give you an idea, one of the safeties, apart from the guns and the plastic bullets and the cracker bullets, and then finally real bullets, but I don't want to use it, is distance. So it's hard to see, but yeah, here's a polar bear. It's quite a distance. Somewhere here is the polar bear. On the screen you see a little bit more, but here to the viewfinder, this is the polar bear you saw. Well, you didn't see. So you are very far away from the polar bear. Also diving, it's very tricky. Divers must be tethered on thick ropes, because there can be very, very rough currents underneath the ice sheets, and the next hole may be 5 kilometers further away. So once you get grabbed by the current, you're gone. It's over. So you have to be tethered. They have to be very trained. The people holding the tethered ropes, they have to be very trained, know what they do. And you have to keep the tiny holes open, because you have to come up there again, and they freeze very fast under certain conditions. This is not tethered, but this is snorkeling. So that's quite safe. I took the photo and you can't see it in here, but I was tethered because I was under the water like 10 meters down or so. Here you see a diver going down and you see the tethering line. It is very, very extremely important, because once you get underneath here and the current grabs you, or the big males, they're hard to see here, but there are big harp seal males there. They can grab you too and take you away. That's unimaginable. Unpredictable sea ice due to climate change. It has become extremely hard to predict when to go. Seasons have been shaken. The start of the ice forming has been pushed back like a month. The ice melt is generally starting 1 month earlier, so it's like 2 months less for polar bears to roam on the ice and find their favorite prey, seals. Also, the quality of the ice is like, if you look at this, it's really nice. It's a nice picture, but for wildlife, it's a nightmare. because I don't think it's in this picture, but sometimes you see a harp seal pup which has no chance of survival without its mom. It's on a little ice sheet, and if mom would go hump up on such a little ice sheet, the ice sheet would turn over, and it's finished. Here you can see it's kind of connected, but the connections are so weak. It's terrible. Even for traveling, you get stuck. You break through the ice everywhere. This should be flat, and the ice just clogs up and freezes again, but it's kind of stable, but not stable enough. Your sled just vanishes through the ice. So that's really a tough one, and your crew should have drills with them to take test drill holes to see how deep the ice goes, where it's still solid before you cross certain areas. Filming on ice. So this was my alternative to the big 5-axis stabilization setup. No stabilization. I took a tripod and mounted it on a sprung sled. So that was we could go very quickly somewhere, stop, and film immediately. That's a very convenient rapid deployment system. Then I always have my baby tripod with me to get closer and very low, to get the low shots. I try to use as much remote control, because with polar bears, once you get them, it can take hours and hours. They are like cats. They sleep a lot, especially after they ate. They sleep a lot. So you have to be ready. And then you can at least lay down. I have a remote monitor also. I can lay on my back and still watch. I can focus, I can zoom, I can do practically everything remotely. So again, look how far away we are. Here's somewhere polar bear. 2 little cubs. Here you can see how far this is. And this is the picture I actually shot. Sometimes you have a small setup and you can get very close. Harp seal pups. If they like you, you can come just as close as you want to. And also, don't forget, once in a while, leave the camera, enjoy the beauty of what you're privileged to see. And the things we can see is beautiful nature. This is the glacier graveyard. It's a vast remnants of glaciers. And the year later, I went again, and it was all gone due to climate change. It was there for 10 years, and now it's gone. These are just some final snapshots of things I did, a selection I did. And I feel very privileged to be able to be among the animals, to be close to orcas. It's one of the most beautiful moments in my life I experience. So I thank you so much for your time. If you want, we can have a Q&A. And I'd like to thank our awesome moderator, Nora. And I want to say, stay safe, sane, enjoy nature. Later on, maybe enjoy my film Epiphany. And after the Q&A, I already say happy World Oceans Week, guys. Thanks. I give it back to you, Nora.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, you must have lived a very dangerous life.
It's dangerous if you're not prepared and if you don't know animal behavior. That's one thing I forgot to tell. You have to know the animal behavior, especially with little animals like sperm whales, polar bears and such. Because you can predict, I think many people who see this seminar will know sharks. They're predictable. If they bend their backs, They curve their backs. That means like they're the fins down. They're uncomfortable, bending backs. It's yeah, I'm about to attack. Well, same thing goes with polar bears. So if you know the behavior, you know when to go to leave or to back off.
I have a question here. So they
Yeah.
say if you, for example, the expedition that you had, um, what do you call this, in the Arctic or even Antarctica just now, um, when you go for such expedition, how long is it? And also, is it a very tight and packed schedule?
It is. It is quite small windows mostly. Like polar bears, there's a window of like 6 weeks where you can get the moms go hunting with the pups and feeding of the pups. Mating season is even smaller. That's like 2 weeks, but it's almost impossible to find it because they're pretty shy. I think they want to have their room for themselves. I haven't been lucky. I've been lucky to have the courting. I filmed the courting of them, but then they took off to their room. And yeah, I don't want to follow that because I do not want to disturb the nature procedures. Um, but usually, especially on the high Arctic, I try to plan as many weeks as possible, going from 4 to 6 weeks. That's ideal because, especially with the climate changes, you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. And the last expedition, even I canceled it after a few days because the ice was completely terrible. And the last day we were out, we spent 3 hours digging out our snowmobiles, 3 snowmobiles, and every time one snowmobile was able to release the other one, that other one, the new one, got stuck. So I was like, no, this is crazy. We're stuck between like 3 ridges, and we know there's two polar bears in the area.
Uh-huh.
If they come, there's no way to protect them, to protect us without protecting them, meaning shooting them. And I don't want to shoot them, never.
There's another,
So yeah,
Michael, there's another question. So this one is from Joseph Ting. So he
hi Joseph.
asked, has Mr. Michael taken any protege?
Any what?
Protege, that means a student under you, a tutelage.
Ah, I would say yes and no. It would be very welcome, but traveling in the Arctic is extremely expensive and really extremely. So I try to keep the cruise as small as possible. One, because it's extremely costly, but also two, because the more people around, polar bears are skittish. Many of the whales are skittish. So the more people around, the less chance you get to film them. But maybe one day, could be.
And what would be the requirement to be this protege of yours?
You have to love nature. You have to take military orders. I'm a nice guy, but when I'm at work, I shout. I do not ask. Well, I shout silently because I don't want to send the scary animal away. But Ellen calls it I bark. uh, that's the requirement. You have to be able to spend very, very lonely days. You have to be able to spend hours and hours, and I mean 24, 48, 30, and more hours just doing nothing, waiting for something to happen. Sometimes we find a polar bear, we put everything in place, and we wait until the animal moves. And that can take like half a day, literally. So that's another challenge because you need to have your batteries constantly charged. So we have systems where we can swap batteries without the cameras getting down. But there's also wind. And even if it doesn't snow, the wind picks up snow particles. So your lens gets dirty. You need to keep your lens clean. You need to keep the cleaning cloths, papers, whatever, clean. So it is very challenging. But if you don't really have the passion for it, I would describe it as boring. And that's difficult because if you're in, you're in. And there's no way like, oh, I want to get out. Yep, start walking. It's like 500 miles that way. So if you're in all the way. And it's, if you like it, it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful things to see in life, to experience. I would even do it without filming, without a camera.
Have you ever, at one moment in all your experience, trying to capture the moment that you felt that it never, that you even doubt yourself, will this ever happen?
What do you mean by happening? Like something
Yeah.
extraordinary
Yes,
happening?
correct. Yeah.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I did. I had a big, huge alpha male orca, and there were a bait ball of sardines, and I knew he was there hunting with the smaller males and some females. And suddenly he breached through. And I got it on film. It's mind blowing. And he passes in front of me, and he's like, I don't know, 2 meters away from me. And right when he passes me, and he passed me, he makes a somersault, 360, and I go like, what's happening? I didn't know that behavior, and I was like, what's happening? And I was like, okay, I'm filming. It's in focus. Yes, always check. Am I stable? And suddenly he opened his mouth, and I saw like huge teeth, massive teeth in a row. And I was like, oh, bleep. That's it. It's over. But keep on filming because you cannot outrun the animal anyway. And it didn't happen. And there was some things happening, but I couldn't tell what it was. I kept filming, and then afterwards I saw they stunned a couple of sardines, and they just took one by one. They took the sardine. It was mesmerizing footage, and it was an amazing moment. Another amazing moment was a sperm whale coming to one of my kids, like 50 centimeters with its mouth, which is 2 meters long, a little bit hanging open. And I was like, can you go to the other side of me, please? Thank you, darling. Because she was very excited. The animal wasn't aggressive, but it's your kids. Sometimes they join us, and yeah, that was cool. Yeah, beautiful moments. I've had dangerous encounters too, which
Tell
could
us,
have
tell
ended
us.
badly. All polar bears, just my mistake, letting them come too close, and that's very, very dangerous because a polar bear can cover a distance of, let's say, 20 meters, 30 meters, like close to 100 foot below a second. That's not their constant running pace, but they can have kind of like spring effect, catapult. And if you're in that zone, there's no way, even on a snowmobile, you can escape. And I've had it, the one we saw, by the way, at a certain point, he came meandering towards us, which is the I'm going to attack you way. But he was not experienced enough to be a good hunter. So we let him come closer. But then suddenly we were with 3 back then, and a safety guard, which was a wrong balance. And one of the people on the expedition kept on filming like in excitement. And we were like, no, we have to go. And that one approached, I don't know, 5 meters maybe. But if he attacks, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. And also in the Canadian Arctic, I spent 10 days with the mother and a cub, and I always wore the same outfits. So I felt like, hey, maybe, you don't know, maybe they recognize me. And the last day I couldn't find them, and I was walking on kind of a path, and suddenly out of the bushes she came with her cup, and we were both surprised and both like, what do we do? And I filmed it even. I was already filming, and she went like, and I was like, no. And she turned twice, I think, if I remember correctly, and was like, please go. And she went further. And I was like, thank you. I thought
Hi,
that was my last
Michael.
day.
Yeah, I'm back.
Hi, Alphonse.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so are you guys done with your presentation? I think the presentation was super great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
if everything, Nora, is there any more questions for Michael?
That's about it actually.
Right.
Michael, thank you very much for your very interesting and insightful presentation, and also really appreciate the stories that you have shared with us. So thank you so much once again, Michael. And then I think most of us can't wait to see your movie Epiphany right now.
Yes.
Right. So audience,
Definitely.
stay tuned. Yes, audience, stay tuned, and we will be playing it on Facebook right away.
Yeah, I would say enjoy Epiphany.
Yep. Thank you very much, Michael.
If you have more questions, pop them on Facebook. I'll try to answer them.
Oh, yes, we will do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks very much, guys.
Yep,
Thank you, Adex. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
See ya.
Good night. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.